Hi, today I've got Robert Deans with me from Deans Property, who's kind enough to give us a testimonial on the work that we did with Deans Property just recently. Robert, so I want to personally thank you for your time and for helping us out here. Robert, maybe if you could just fill us in a bit of how we met and how things progressed from that point.
Thanks, Rob. I first met Rob at a networking function. So I'm in real estate. I had my business for about 25 years, and I'm really a big believer in constantly developing. Went to a networking function and I met Rob, who talked to me about how he's involved in strategically, helping businesses and coaching and helping you align your businesses. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So I decided to take it up with you, Rob.
Brilliant, Robert. And what is it that you saw in relation to moving that opportunity forward? I know when we first caught up, one of the things I did for you was a talk to your group, and it seemed like you had a great group of people. What was it at the end of the day that you said, you know what, yep, I've got to make this happen, and I can see the benefit of taking Rob on board and having him as part of my team?
Well, I think actually, Rob, the first thing we did was I think I sat down with you and I mentioned a few of my goals and ideas, and you were very positive, and you picked me up on a few things which I thought were worth working on. And I think actually we first started out, you were giving me a bit of coaching, and then from that I could see the benefit, and that's when I decided to bring you in. And then you did your little talk, and part of what I was looking for in my business was how to keep my staff motivated and how to keep them focused. I had some great people. I've always had some great staff, and one of the challenges I had was doing the business myself, because I've been very hands-on, and also keeping my staff focused on their business and what they're doing. And I thought this was a great way to do that and make them accountable. So we started that initial conversation where you went through some goals and started talking about what they wanted to achieve, and then we sort of worked out the program. I think it was we sort of worked on with you and with the staff on what they wanted to achieve, and then put some structure around that.
Yeah, and no doubt it didn't take too long to be able to actually transform things around and increase the productivity of the staff, raise the bar, raise their standards, achieve some really good goals. Robert, what were some of the results that we achieved in the progress?
Well, I think it was a very rapid change that we had, relative, because you were with us for quite some time, and you've been a big input, particularly through that initial period. Initially, we had staff that were hitting targets. This is one of the things I really remember. We had a commission structure which gave people targets that they were aiming for, and I had staff that were hitting within 1% of that target, and year in, year out almost, they were just hitting their targets, not going necessarily over, and I think some of them were actually within 1%. And I remember this particular point that you engaged the staff with, which was, what you focus on, you achieve, essentially, something to that effect. And one of the things that we started looking on was changing the perception of their target. So rather than it being a target, we set up a structure which was about thresholds. It was initial threshold, and then threshold 1, threshold 2. So it wasn't about achieving a particular target and then they're making a commission over that particular target. It was about the levels in which they could achieve. And I think one of the staff members went from sort of $150,000 a year to over $1 million, and he did extremely well, and another lady that was with us did the same sort of thing. So it didn't take long, of this routine catch up of, keeping these guys accountable and working this strategy that we sort of developed to getting my staff on board and excited and focused and stretching themselves beyond what they were normally achieving, which it freed me up. It also meant I had a happier environment, and we had extremely good growth.
Robert, there's going to be a lot of people watching this video and they're probably sitting there right now thinking, I'm in similar situations to a number of things you've just mentioned, where it's like, what do I do to get my team more productive? How do I make more money? How do I increase my profits, cash flow, all that sort of thing? If there's a word of advice that you could fill us in on about the importance of, whether it's coaching, training, mentoring, etc., having an outsider who potentially fits in well as part of your team, and that, what would you say to those who are listening right at this very moment?
I think we can all keep learning, and there's always new ways to do things. And I think it's important to have someone that keeps you accountable. When you're a small business, keeping your staff accountable is really important. And if you're like I have been, selling and managing the business and looking for new ways to develop the business, I think it's important to have someone who's probably external to your business to actually assist and just give you a different perspective, and that perspective can give you some insights. And if you do that on a regular basis, then what you're doing is you're setting goals, you're setting ideas in place, and then you're actually putting some of those systems in place. And then you also know that within a month or within a couple of weeks, depending on how often you meet this particular person, you're going to be accountable to them. And one of the things I introduced to my business was for yourself to be accountable. For you to speak to my staff and make them accountable to the goals and expectations that we had in mind. But it also gave me a means of communicating through my staff and them to speak to me, and you became sort of a bit of a conduit. So they were able to communicate, what are the challenges they were having without necessarily talking to me. And, from that cross-section of staff, we were able to sit down and then develop strategies around, how to execute, new ideas into the business and get them motivated to do, better than what they were doing. And, we developed a really good culture of growth and development. And I think one of the things, if I can advise anyone, is that you can never stop learning, but having someone keeping you accountable, getting you refocused, and setting goals and raising the bar and pushing you, they're all things that actually make it a much better environment, and also it helps align the staff and the business, and you get growth through that way. I suppose that's what I wanted to say.
Excellent, Robert. Thank you so much.
No worries.